Hi everyone, it's Sarah and welcome back to my basement. Today I'm going to give you a little bar basics. So in case you haven't been to a bar class before, maybe it's been a while, maybe you've gone to a different methodology, I thought I'd spend some time just getting you ready, getting you more confident and set up for that first class. So we'll cover a few things today. We'll cover your setup. We'll cover the general arc of the classes that we'll be going through. I'll give you a few tips around positioning and alignment. And then I'll talk a little bit at the end about modifications, both how to take a move and make it easier, and some general tips on how to make a move harder. Okay, let's get started. So first things first is getting your space set up. If you watch my first video, you have a sense of some of the equipment that you might need, but I went ahead and set it up for the way that it will be when I'm teaching the class. All the classes, I hope. We'll see. This is a fluid situation. So here I have my support. I have a bar, so I'm going to be using that. You can get any stable surface. You want to take that shoulder and then drop it down a little so the hand can rest nicely on that support. So you could use a chair, you could use a countertop, you could use all sorts of different things. Underneath, I've got carpet, but I also have a mat. So this is just a regular old yoga mat. You can also use a towel. You want to set that up so you've got space to move this way, but then also when we turn into the bar, you have a nice workspace here. What you can't see just off the side, and you have no idea how long it took me to get this set up, so I'm not going to move it. I have my weights, I have my small ball, and I have my strap at the end of the mat. So I don't want them right in front of me underfoot, so if let's say I'm doing a knee raise, I could be kicking it. So I want to have my initial space around me clear. How much space do you actually need? Well, you can think about extending those arms in a big circle, and that means you can do bar in a pretty small space. I also have my water and my towel. They're just out of sight here. But that's really all you need is the support and ideally something soft underneath, especially when we do floor work down on the mat. You want something that's going to help cushion your knees and your forearms. Okay, so that's set up. Again, you can go to my previous video to learn a little bit more about the equipment. Now, let's talk about the actual class. So the class format is going to be similar, at least the arc of it will be. The individual exercises will be different. We'll use different equipment or props just to make it interesting, to change, but the format will be generally the same. So it's about an hour-long class. I'm going to ask for your forgiveness up front because this is a new teaching environment for me and normally in the studio. So I need to modify the class a little bit. I am not getting the visual cues that I normally get from you as far as what's working and what's not. So the class is going to, at least initially, I'm going to make it a little bit simpler and easier to follow. And then as time goes on, if people want it, we can take it up a notch. So that means we'll just have fewer exercises, but the shape of it will be the same. We'll start out with a warm-up. We'll be doing dynamic things like knee lifts. We'll be lunging from side to side. So things that are going to raise the heart rate and get the blood flowing where it needs to go. Then we're going to move into static and dynamic stretching, again, all part of the warm-up process. Then we'll move to upper body. That's when you're going to utilize those light hand weights. They're at the end of my mat. These are my threes. They're ready to go. You can start with a light set. You can also add a medium set. So light set 2 to 3 pounds, medium set 4 to 6. Upper body will also be a place where we'll do planks and push-ups. And if you've been to any of my classes, you know there's always going to be planks involved. Then we'll move into the lower body portion, doing both thigh work and my favorite, seat work. And that's when we'll be using the bar most of the time. Then we'll go down to the mat and do most of our core work, although we do some standing core work from time to time. And we always finish out class with a little bit slower tempo music and a nice stretch because you'll have earned it. As you're going throughout the class, you're going to be listening to my cues and you're going to be listening to your own body. If you haven't worked out before, it's probably good for you to talk to your physician and make sure this is a good choice for you. But always listen to your body. Bar, there will be some shaking if you've never done bar before. I still shake like a leaf 4.5 years into this. So that's normal, but it shouldn't be painful or like stabbing pains or sharp pains or anything like that is not great. Barre is low to no impact, so you don't have to worry about your joints. It's very kind on your joints. There are a few things that will have you modify if you have knee issues, but don't worry. I'll be really clear in setting that up and giving you options. Okay, I'm just looking at my little note of things that I wanted to talk about in that setup. So we've covered what your space looks like. We've covered what the arc of the class looks like. And now we're going to talk about alignment, because alignment is so critical in Barre. When our bodies are in the right alignment, that means we're working the right muscles, we're building strength, balance, and flexibility, and most importantly, we're protecting our bodies and not injuring ourselves. Sometimes poor alignment that I see in my class, it might not cause injury, but what happens is that the person's not maximizing their workout. I'm a maximizer. I want you to get the most out of your time because it's precious. So when I harp on alignment, it's because I want you to be safe and I want you to be getting a lot of your out of your workout. Sorry, seasonal allergies. We're keeping it real here in Kirkland. Okay, so when we're talking about alignment, one of the common things that you hear me say is ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. So what does that look like? So that's talking about my alignment where my ears are sitting above my shoulders, above my hips, and above my heels. So I'm going to turn on profile. I'm going to tuck this bad boy in. So hopefully that you can see as I'm standing like this, I've got that alignment. Now, I see a lot of misalignment that happens in class. So maybe someone doesn't have their ears over their shoulders. They're jutting the head forward. Or they're pulling it too far back. Normally, I see people jutting them forward. Same thing with the shoulders. Shoulders too far forward. Or leaning back. The most common mistake I see is with the hips. So some Barre methodologies that I don't practice are all about the tuck. There's nothing wrong with tucking the hips. Extension and flexion of the spine is healthy, but we want to keep that spine in neutral. So I don't want the pelvis untucked. We might do this in some cases when we're stretching, but I also don't want the tuck. So hopefully you can see my tuck tucked way under. This puts a lot of strain into the low back. It's going to put extra pressure into your hips. So that's not something we want to do. And likewise with feet, we don't want to be pulling back, so the feet forward or leaning forward. Now I'm exaggerating. Normally misalignment isn't that big, but we really want to think about that ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. Now it's possible that this doesn't feel natural to you yet, and that's okay. I'd recommend taking some time in front of a mirror, either before class or after, to look and to stand and to see how is my alignment. Thinking about taking the shoulders and rolling them up, down, around, and back. Another common misalignment I see, or something we see during exercises, is people shrugging their shoulders up. Also can be a lot of front back imbalance, a lot of tightness in the pecs, because we tend to hunch and sit forward. So I'm going to be giving you lots of cues verbally. I'll be demoing the right way and also the wrong way, so you can see what that looks like. And again, I'm always going to exaggerate that demo a little bit so you see what it really looks like. So again, alignment's really, really critical to make sure we're working the right muscles, to make sure that we're maximizing our workout, and to make sure that we're preventing injury. So very, very important. We move in Barre amped with intention or purpose. We don't want random movements, which comes to our second principle, which is muscles, not momentum. So when we're starting out, it's easy sometimes to think, wow, I've got to do this big range of motion. And what do we start doing? Well, we start using momentum. I'll turn on profile. Maybe I'm doing a bicep curl, and it's difficult for me at the weight that I have, so I'm going like this. I have to use that little get up to get that bicep curl up. That's not ideal. Why is that not ideal? Well, maybe even if I'm in the right form, what am I not doing? I'm not building the muscles that I need. I'm not getting stronger, and that means I'm going to continue relying on momentum rather than building the muscle. So in a moment, we'll talk about modifications, but we want to use muscle, not momentum. We want slow and controlled movements. Unless I'm telling you and cueing it really quickly, we don't want to be, I call this the biceps hiccup. Another great example of where momentum comes in is some of our leg work, Leg extensions is the classic. If you've been to any of my live bar classes, you know leg extensions is one of my favorite exercises for toning the thighs. I'll turn a little bit sideways here. So in a leg extension, I'm taking that leg and I'm extending it. But it's nice and slow and controlled, so I should be able to take it up very slow and down. What do I tend to see in my classes? I see something like this. Okay, now I want to be a rock cat too, but this is not the class for that. This is a class where we're going to use muscle and not momentum. So in that case, when I see people using momentum, that's telling me they're working above their level either with weight or with range of motion. So in a minute, we're going to talk about some modifications for that. Now I want to move on to some positioning things. I'm going to cue these and explain these as we go, but there are a few basic foot positions that you can keep in mind and have in the back of your head ready to cue up. So the first foot position we're going to use is called parallel, or hips distance parallel. And if you look at my feet, they're stacked over my hips. I've got my good ears over shoulders over hips over heels alignment. The feet are not turned out, and the feet are not turned in. The knees are soft. They're not bent, but they're not locked. So it's just a soft, gentle bend. You can kind of stand and then just give your legs a little shake. So this is going to be parallel. We'll use all of these positions for both upper and lower body work. Okay, so we've got parallel hips distance. Another common position is called V position. You might know it as first position in ballet. So to get from parallel to V position, you're here in your parallel and you're going to pick up those heels and they'll stick to the mat, and you're going to bring those heels together. So again, parallel and V position. So go ahead and look down at your feet. You want those toes to be going out at a diagonal, so think 45 degrees. And you want those hips to externally rotate. So the knees, if I were to bend, are going to be tracking over my feet. If you come from ballet like I do, you might be used to first position. And so for example, like that's my first position turnout. I've been working really hard on my turnout, but that's too far turned out for what we're doing in bar. So I get it that you can probably go that far. That's not really the point of the exercise. Another thing you can think about, am I in first position, is to look down and see, is that a pizza slice? Yep, that's a good slice of pizza. So this is kind of a regular V. You'll hear me call it low V. You'll hear me call it first position. We also have high V or narrow V. So in that case, you're going to pick up those feet and walk them in a little bit. So they're not going to be quite at 45. They're just going to be stepped in. Go ahead and look down at your feet. And I want you to think cheesecake slice. So we had low V, pizza slice, narrow V, cheesecake slice. I'm getting kind of hungry. I shouldn't do this in the afternoon. Okay, so those are some of the major foot positions. The last one that we're going to do, and this might be a little bit hard, so I'll make sure to spend some time setting it up in our first class, is wide second position. So in wide second, I'm going to go ahead and step those legs out. It's wider than a ballet second position. So in a ballet second position, you would step out from first, and that would be a second position, but it's going to be nice and wide. And normally I wouldn't want you this close to the bar, but I'm just close because I need to work with the camera today. So like first position, those toes are going out on the diagonal. And like first position, when I bend down, those knees are tracking in line with the feet. Ooh, snap, crackle, pop. Another thing to think about in these positions is, again, ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. So I'm going to turn in towards the bar and show you what that looks like for second position. And hopefully keep my feet on camera. So here I am in my second position. My hands are just resting lightly on the bar. I'm not gripping. And when I lower down into second position, as much as possible, I'm sliding down that imaginary wall. Up and down, up and down. Nice and slow and controlled, moving fluidly throughout that range of motion. One thing I've noticed about second position is a lot of people are going to be tight, especially in the hips. And it's very difficult for them to stay sliding down that imaginary wall. If you find this to be you, there's a simple modification that you can do. I'll do this with my hand and my hips because I think it's easier to see. So I'm going to lower down, and then I'm going to hinge at the waist, just pitching forward slightly. So nothing else is changing, and my chin needs to be tucked in. So it's not thrusting, it's tucked in. So here I am moving up and down. Pitched forward. All right, so to review, we had 4-foot positions that we just went over. We have parallel hips distance. We have wide V, our first position. We have narrow V, our cheesecake slice. And then we have our nice wide second. Okay, those are our foot positions. We have one more important foot thing to talk about before we can move on to my last few tips, and that's releve. Now, most exercises that we do in Barre Amped can be done flat-footed. That's a modification, especially as you're building your foot strength. There's some exercises like wide second that you can always do flat-footed. But in some of our exercises, especially for thigh work, especially when we're in here in parallel, we're going to think about going into releve. Releve is something you might know if you've taken ballet. And releve is when we're going to come up onto the balls of our feet. So as I'm coming up onto the ball of my foot, there's going to be more weight on the big and second toe than the pinky. I don't want my ankles to sickle out or collapse or sickle in. I'm keeping that same alignment. I'm just coming up. And again, if I were doing parallel thigh work, this is about where I'm going to be. I'm going to turn on profile so you can see what it looks like from the side. So here I am in my hips distance in parallel. And for releve, I'm going to raise my heels up. And then to start working the quads, I'm going to slide down the imaginary wall. And you hopefully can see there's a natural curve in my spine. That's the tuck we want to avoid. We just want natural curve in the spine. So go ahead and take a look at my feet. Hopefully you can see them. There's more weight on that big and second toe. The heels are nice and high. One of the most common mistakes I see in my class is people are doing releve here. What happens when you do releve here? Well, one, you're not really building the strength in your feet or in your calves. And I gotta be honest, this is not a lot of quad work right here. I'm stretching out my calves, but I'm not getting deep into those quads. That's the fire. That's where the work, I can already feel myself shaking. And this is where the fire happens, is here. You've got your bar to hold on to support you throughout this, but the weight is all in the balls of the feet. So I can take my hands off. It's hard to do looking sideways. And that's where all the weight is. So releve is a little bit tricky. For me, when I started bar, my calves and my feet were the weakest things relative to the rest of my body. I had no idea. So bar really is going to strengthen your feet and your calves. So if you have more questions about releve, maybe we'll do a different tutorial about how to build strength for releve. And again, we're thinking about that alignment. We're thinking about being safe. But again, this is a much more effective workout. This is a much more effective workout than here. That's why you're not feeling the shake, because you're not in those quads the way that I want you to be. All right. One more thing that's very important is around gripping. So something I notice, especially for new people, is they grip onto the weights or the bar like they're holding on for dear life. So let's say I've got my 3-pounders here. You can see when they're gripping all of the muscles and all of the tension that they're creating, but they're putting all of this energy into gripping the weights. But guess what? Your muscles are built to do this. Your muscles are built to lift. You don't need to grip that hard. So a hot tip that I have is to let go of some of your outer fingers or maybe even let go of 3. This is how I tend to lift when it's light. And this is just fine. I have control over what I'm doing. It's a 3-pound weight. If that's still too difficult for you, then maybe you're lifting a weight that's too heavy. Maybe you should go to body weight, drop down to a lighter set. But if you're really gripping, you're wasting that energy and you're not letting those muscles do what they're meant to do. The other place I see gripping is with people's support. So something I'll notice sometimes is someone in class and the whole bar will be shaking because they're holding on for dear life. And sometimes it's really hard, I get that. But what we want to use this for balance, not for whole body support. So an easy thing to do is, first of all, don't get up next to your support. It's way too tempting when you're this close to lean. And again, you're out of alignment. You're not working what you need to work. If you're that stuck, you need to stop, come out of the move, reset, and come in stronger. So when you're thinking about holding onto that bar, you want to be a good distance from it just so your hand can rest lightly on your bar or your support. You can let your fingers wrap around. Now, if you're a gripper, and I tend to be a gripper, there are some tricks and tips that you can use. So I'm going to face in for this. So one thing that you can do is you can just grip with 2 fingers. So I'm holding onto the bar. I certainly don't have the same amount of control with these 2 fingers. Another option to give you some balance without gripping is to take the palms and flip them up and put them on top of your support. So again, you've got that contact point with something that's solid, but you're not holding on. And the third and my favorite is karate chop hands. So I still have contact with that support, but I'm not gripping. Don't waste energy gripping. You're strong. Your muscles can do this. All right, this video is already way longer than I thought it would be, so I'm going to come back with another video about how to modify your workouts. But again, hopefully you have some good ideas now on how to set up your space, what class will look like, basic foot positions, releve, and don't grip your bar. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Bye.